We're asked to find all the zeros on this one. Finding the zeros is basically the same thing as solving this one for x. We want to know what x equals here. The reason why we say it's finding the zeros, if we were to graph these, it's where they cross the x-axis. So where y value equals 0. So the first thing we're going to do with this one is to set it equal to 0, because that's what we're trying to find, is all the zeros. So instead of writing f of x equals, I'm going to change it to a 0. Okay, so everything else remains the same. I just changed this to a 0 is all, because that's what we're trying to find what the values are. Now, with this one, we're going to factor this one. And this seems a little bit weird because the x to the 6th power, we haven't really factored a lot of those in the past. But in order to factor this one, we're going to just pretend for a moment that this is x squared, and this is just a plain old x. If we just did that one, this would just be two numbers that multiply together to give you -8, but add together to give you 7. Well, that would be -8 and 1. So we're going to use those same guidelines here. And the fact that it's x to the 6th power means whenever we factor them, it's going to end up being x cubed, x to the 3rd, -8 and x cubed plus 1. So the same principle applies. Two numbers that multiply together to give you this number, which is -8, but add together to give you -7. That would be a -8 and a +1. And we're basically going to take whatever this number is here, this exponent, the 6, and divide it into 2, because if we multiply these two together, x cubed times x cubed is x to the 6th power. Okay, so now that we have that, now what we're going to do is set each one of these equal to 0. So we set x cubed -8 equal to 0, and x cubed plus 1 equal to 0. Now what we're going to go through and do is solve each one of these. So let's start with this one over here. I need to move my 8 over to the other side, so I add 8 to both sides. I find out that 8 is equal to x cubed. Well, that's great, but I don't want to know what x cubed equals. I want to know what x equals. So in order to get rid of this cubed right here, what we're going to have to do is take the cube root of both sides. So I take the cube root of both sides, and the cube root will cancel this cubed right here out. That'll leave me with just x on this right-hand side here. So then the cube root of 8 we find out is 2. So I know that x equals 2. And that works out really nice. Now on this one over here, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to move our 1 over to the other side. X cubed equals -1. Again, the way we get rid of that cubed is to take the cube root of both sides. The cube root of -1 is -1. So x is equal to -1 and 2. Those are my answers on this particular problem. The big thing is, when you're doing these, just make sure that you're going to factor these like normal, like you would normally. The catch is with this exponent right here, we're going to need to make sure that these two exponents here add up to this original one here, and that will give us our answer.